Have you ever felt it? That sharp, silent, almost suffocating moment when you suddenly realize fear has been quietly scripting your entire life. Not in grand, cinematic, heart-racing moments. No, it's far more subtle, more cunning than that. It hides in the tiny decisions you barely notice, the job application you never submitted, the conversation you avoided, the dream you shelved because someone told you it was too wild, too unrealistic, too much, and you believed them. Why? Because fear is a master of disguise. It doesn't show up dressed as terror. It slips in dressed as logic, as practicality, as adulthood. But let's be brutally honest for a second. Most of what we fear isn't even real. It's a story, a well-rehearsed script running on a loop inside our minds. A narrative written by old pain, powered by leftover anxiety, and completely detached from the reality of this moment. The ancient Stoics knew this better than anyone. They refused to sugarcoat it. Marcus Aurelius, a man who ruled an empire while battling inner storms, once wrote, "If you are distressed by anything external, the pain is not due to the thing itself but to your estimate of it. And this, you have the power to revoke at any moment." Pause for a second and really absorb that. Because that's why you're here. And why I made this video, not to help you manage fear, but to pull it up by the roots. To untangle the invisible chains of false beliefs, the quiet lies you've told yourself for years. And by the time this video ends, you won't just see fear differently. You'll see yourself differently. And if any part of this hits home, if you're tired of living small in a world begging you to expand, do me a quick, free favor. Hit that subscribe button. It's my way of knowing these words are reaching the people who need them most. Main content. Now, let me ask you something. Have you noticed how your mind clings the hardest? Right before something slips away? We crave permanence like we crave air. We want stability in our careers, predictability in our relationships, certainty in our feelings. It's natural to hunger for a steady, solid life. But here's the hard truth. Life was never designed to stay still. It never has been. And it never will be. Everything around you is in constant motion. Your body changes. Your circumstances evolve. Your very sense of self, the image you hold of who you are, is a living, breathing thing. The harder you try to keep it all fixed and predictable, the more it slips through your fingers. And fear? It feeds on this illusion. It whispers the fantasy that things should remain the same. But change isn't the enemy. Our resistance to it is. We panic when jobs end, when relationships shift, when the familiar fades. We grieve what was and dread what might come. But here's the paradox. The more you resist change, the deeper you suffer. The Stoics called this form of resistance a kind of self-inflicted torture. Marcus Aurelius put it plainly, loss is nothing else but change. And change is nature's delight. Think about that. Nature doesn't panic when winter comes, because it knows spring will follow. Why should we be any different? Every heartbreak you thought would destroy you, didn't. Every awkward failure you were sure would define you forever, faded. Every dark phase passed, whether you noticed it or not. Pain doesn't last, neither does joy. And that isn't a flaw in life's design, it's the very definition of freedom. Carl Jung said it best, what you resist persists. The more you fight against life's natural ebb and flow, the more fear tightens its grip. But when you stop clinging to outcomes, when you stop trying to control every twist in the road, fear begins to loosen its hold. And here's the thing, you don't become indifferent when you do this. You become wise. You start to trust your own resilience, your innate ability to adapt, not your need to predict or control. If you need proof, it's everywhere. Step outside and watch the seasons shift without your permission. Look at how your skin renews itself without you lifting a finger. Notice how your thoughts morph from sunrise to sunset. Everything moves, even your fears. They are not permanent structures you need to defend yourself against. They're like weather patterns, coming and going. Shifting shapes. No need to build a fortress to outrun them. Just stand steady. Feel them pass. The ancient Greeks understood this well. Heraclitus, the philosopher who believed everything flows, once said, "No man ever steps in the same river twice. For it's not the same river and he's not the same man." It's a powerful reminder that you, too, are in motion. That tightness in your chest when you're scared? Temporary. Those racing thoughts? Temporary. The sense of being trapped? Temporary. Motion is where strength lives. Not in trying to freeze time or glue joy in place. Not in barricading yourself against loss. But in riding the wave. In letting life move. In trusting that you will move with it. Because if everything is always changing, then even the worst thing you're facing right now has an expiration date. We ended the last section with a truth that's both humbling and liberating. Everything moves. Even your fears, your doubts, your darkest moments, none of them are permanent. And the ancient philosophers understood this long before we had the language to call it personal growth. The ancient Greeks saw this too. Heraclitus, one of the earliest philosophers, believed in a world of constant change. You might have heard his famous line before, "No man ever steps in the same river twice. For it is not the same river. And he is not the same man." Think about that for a second. Every breath you take, every thought that crosses your mind, every emotion rising and falling inside you, all of it is in motion. Even you, your habits, your mindset, your sense of identity, none of it is set in stone. And here's the beautiful part, that's not a threat. It's an invitation, an open door to evolve. So, the next time you feel paralyzed by panic, or when anxiety wraps around you like a suffocating fog, pause, take a breath, then take another. That breath you just drew in? It isn't the same as the one before it. And neither are you. The tightness you feel in your chest? It's temporary. The storm of thoughts racing through your mind like a stampede? Not permanent. You are not stuck. You are not frozen in place. You, my friend, are in motion, and in motion is exactly where your strength lives. Don't waste your energy trying to freeze the moment, trying to superglue joy in place, or bolt the doors to keep sorrow out. Life isn't meant to be pinned down like a butterfly under glass. Instead, let it shift, let the day end, let the feeling pass, because that's where your real power is, not in pretending you can control it all, but in learning to ride the wave, to remain steady while the tide rises and falls around you. And if you ever doubt this, remember, if everything is always changing, then even the worst thing you're dealing with right now comes with an expiration date. Yes, even that. Let that settle into your bones for a moment. Now, let's get painfully honest for a second. Fear is a shape-shifter. It wears 100 different disguises. Sometimes it shows up sounding practical, "I'm not ready." Other times, it dresses up as shame, "What if I fail? What if they laugh at me?" But peel back the costume, and underneath you'll find something much simpler. Fear is just a thought. Just a sentence inside your mind, pretending to be truth. And no one knew this better than the Stoics. They taught that it's not events themselves that disturb us, but our judgment of those events. Epictetus, one of the greatest Stoic philosophers, said it clearly, it's not things that upset us, but our judgments about things. Read that again, slowly, because that one idea, if you let it sink in, can unravel years of fear-driven living. See, we often picture fear like a monster in the shadows, something stalking us from behind. But the truth is, most of the time it's just our imagination hosting horror movie marathons, and we're the only ones buying a ticket. You're not being chased, you're anticipating being chased. Huge difference. Ever notice how your brain spins wild stories when you're anxious? What if the worst happens? What if they leave me? What if I completely fall apart? Your mind becomes this late-night talk show host, cracking jokes about your biggest fears, and you, the audience, sit there believing every punchline. But here's the kicker: your brain can't tell the difference between a real threat and a vividly imagined one. That's why your palms sweat before a job interview, as if you're being hunted by a wild animal. Why your stomach knots when you think about having a tough conversation. The mind builds the scenario, and your body reacts as if it's already happening. Carl Jung, the father of analytical psychology, nailed it when he said, "People will do anything, no matter how absurd, to avoid facing their own soul. Because fear isn't always about the situation. More often, it's about what the situation reflects back to us, our insecurities, our old wounds, the tender parts of ourselves we've been too afraid to confront." So how do you deal with this illusion? Simple. You stop arguing with fear. You watch it. Observe it like a cloud drifting lazily across a summer sky. You name it. Ah, there's that thought again, the one where I convince myself I'm a failure. Cute. You don't have to believe it. You just have to notice it for what it is, mental noise. Plato once warned us, we can easily forgive a child who is afraid of the dark. The real tragedy is when men are afraid of the light. And isn't that exactly what fear is? A rejection of light, a rejection of possibility, of growth, of movement. The truth is, most of us aren't afraid of failing. We're afraid of what success might demand of us, of who we might have to become next. And that, my friend, is a much scarier thing than failure could ever be. So, as we just uncovered, most of our fears aren't rooted in the present. They're either echoes of the past or projections into a future that hasn't even arrived. And it's in that disconnection where fear thrives best. Look, thoughts come and go. They're like radio static, flickering in and out of your mind. And just like static, you don't have to tune into every single frequency that crosses your mental airwaves. Especially when a fear-based thought shows up, knocking at the door of your attention. You have a choice. You can either let it blast through your internal speakers, or you can pause, take a breath, and ask yourself a crucial question: is this real? Or is this just my mind running a disaster simulation that hasn't even happened yet? Because if it's not real, and let's be honest, it usually isn't, you owe it to yourself not to treat it like it is. Don't hand fear a front row seat to your consciousness. Don't give it a microphone. And absolutely don't let it dictate your next move. When fear whispers, "Stay small, play it safe, don't you dare risk this," respond like a Stoic would. Remind yourself, you are not the truth. You're just a thought, and I decide what happens next. At the end of the day, you are not your thoughts. You're the thinker. You're the one with the authority to decide which thoughts deserve your energy, and which ones get left behind like unwanted junk mail. Fear may still knock. Sure, it might rattle the doorknob now and then. But you don't have to let it in. Not anymore. Have you ever caught yourself mid-panic, only to realize that absolutely nothing is actually happening in that moment? No one's yelling at you. Nothing's crashing down around you. Yet your heart is racing. Your chest feels tight, and your mind is sprinting like it's being chased through a dark alley. That's what fear does. It hijacks your attention and drags you out of the moment. It catapults you into a future that doesn't exist yet, or buries you in a past you can't rewrite. Fear loves time travel. It thrives on what-ifs and remember when you messed that up. It traps you in an endless emotional loop, reacting to situations that aren't even real. And the worst part? You believe it. You feel it in your body. Your palms sweat. Your stomach knots. Your breath shortens. Your mind races, as if there's an actual tiger in the room. But there's no tiger. This is where Stoicism, in its calm and grounded wisdom, reminds us to anchor ourselves to right now. Marcus Aurelius said it beautifully in his Meditations. Confine yourself to the present. Not to tomorrow, not even to 10 minutes from now. Just now. Because in this moment, you're okay. You're breathing. You're safe. You're capable. And when you return to the present moment, fear loses its fuel. Why? Because fear is a projection. It can't survive in the real. It needs the imagined future or the replayed past to breathe. But the present? It's too raw, too honest, too calm. Right here, right now, you're not failing. You're not being judged. You're not broken. You're simply here. So the next time fear grips you by the collar, don't fight it. Don't deny it. Just come back. Feel your feet on the ground. Take 3 slow, deliberate breaths. Look around and name what you see. Touch something textured. Hear a sound in the distance. This isn't some mystical, woo-woo practice. This is neuroscience. Physically grounding yourself pulls your emotional brain down from its panic tower and hands the controls back to your logical mind. Socrates once said, "The unexamined life is not worth living." But here's the other side of that coin. The over-examined moment is unlivable. If you're stuck constantly analyzing every possible outcome, reliving old failures, or rehearsing every disaster your mind can conjure, you're not really living. You're surviving, stuck in a mental fog, haunted by ghosts your imagination keeps inventing. Carl Jung believed that anxiety is the fear of the chaos within ourselves. And so, in a desperate attempt to avoid facing that inner storm, we distract ourselves with worries about the future, or reruns of old pain. But here's the twist: the peace you crave? It lives in the present. The more you avoid it, the further you drift away from your own center. And that's why mindfulness, real, grounded presence, isn't a luxury or some trendy wellness fad. It's a survival skill, not about sitting cross-legged in silence or lighting candles in a dim room. It's about learning to stay. Stay with the discomfort. Stay with the breath. Stay with the messy, uncertain, beautiful, brutal reality of now. Because here's the hard truth: life only happens in the present. Your fears? They exist everywhere else. So come back. Not once, not perfectly, but again and again. Choose now. That's where your strength is. That's where your power lives. Let me ask you something. How often have you felt like you're the only one terrified? Like the rest of the world has it all figured out, and you're the one fumbling through the dark, hoping no one notices the tremble in your voice or the shake in your hands? That feeling, that bone-deep isolation, is one of fear's dirtiest, most manipulative tricks. It convinces you that your struggle is a flaw, that you're weak for feeling anxious, that you're somehow broken for not having it all together. But let's be honest, that's not the truth. Not even close. In the last section, we uncovered one of fear's dirtiest tricks: the lie that you're alone in your struggle. That your anxiety makes you weak, or broken, or somehow unworthy. But let's be clear about something. That's not just misleading, it's an outright lie. The Stoics never claimed that life would be painless. In fact, their entire philosophy was built on the unshakable understanding that suffering is woven into the fabric of being human. They didn't view fear, pain, or grief as personal failures to be ashamed of. No, they saw them as inevitable parts of the terrain, obstacles you don't avoid but learn to navigate. Look at Epictetus, one of the greatest Stoic teachers. Born into slavery, stripped of freedom, yet his wisdom endures centuries later. Or Marcus Aurelius, who ruled an empire while enduring personal tragedies and a deadly plague sweeping through his lands. Seneca wrote timeless letters on resilience while facing exile, grief, and staggering personal loss. And you know what none of them said? This is unfair. I must be broken. They didn't ask, why me? They asked, so now what? Aristotle believed we acquire courage not by waiting for fear to disappear but by acting as though we already possess it. In other words, the presence of fear isn't proof of weakness. It's the proving ground of strength. It's the metaphorical weight you lift, rep by representative, to build resilience. And it turns out, you're far from alone in this experience. Psychologist Carl Rogers once wrote something deeply powerful: what is most personal is most universal. That ache you carry in your chest when you doubt yourself? Millions have felt it. That gnawing fear of not being good enough? It's echoed across generations, across time, across continents. You are not an outlier. You are not broken. You're human. And to be human means to hurt, to doubt, to fear. But none of that makes you unworthy, it makes you real. Think about it for a moment. If you were completely fearless, you wouldn't just be brave. You'd be unfeeling. If you were totally immune to pain, you wouldn't be strong. You'd be disconnected from everything and everyone around you. Fear connects us. Suffering connects us. It reminds us that we care, that we love, that we're alive, that we're trying. Stoicism doesn't ask you to fake a smile when you're drowning inside. It doesn't tell you to pretend you're okay when you're breaking. What it asks is this: recognize that suffering, no matter how sharp, doesn't diminish your worth. It doesn't demand that you stop feeling fear. It asks you to feel it, and keep moving anyway. That is courage. That is strength, not the absence of struggle, but the willingness to continue walking with it. So, the next time you're caught in a storm of self-doubt, wondering why you're still scared, why you're not further along, why you haven't figured it out yet, pause. And remember this: you are not the only one feeling this. Not even close. And that's the good news. Because it means you're not broken. You're not failing. You're just becoming. You are walking a path that countless others have walked before you. Some of them were ancient philosophers writing by candlelight. Some are people just like you, modern souls trying to make sense of their fears and anxieties in the middle of a noisy, chaotic world. And like them, you will find your way. Not by erasing fear, but by recognizing that fear is simply part of your shared, messy, magnificent humanity. Now, let's be honest, most of us don't actually fear the unknown. What keeps us awake at night is the fear of not being in control. It's not the mystery of what's coming next that rattles us, it's the unbearable idea that we can't dictate how it unfolds. That's why we overthink conversations days before they happen. Why we rehearse worst-case scenarios in our heads like twisted bedtime stories. Why we check our phones obsessively, looking for signs that things are still within reach. We're not preparing. We're grasping for control in a world that refuses to be controlled. And this, right here, is where fear thrives best. In the illusion that if we manage every angle, if we anticipate every outcome, we can keep ourselves safe. The Stoics saw straight through this trap. Marcus Aurelius reminded himself daily, you have power over your mind, not outside events. Realize this, and you will find strength. What he meant was simple, yet deeply freeing. The outside world will never obey you. People will disappoint you. Plans will fall apart. The economy will dip. Loved ones will leave. Your body will age. These things were never yours to control in the first place. And clinging to the idea that they should be? That's the root of unnecessary suffering. Control is seductive because it gives us the illusion of safety. It feels comforting to believe you've got a grip on everything. But the brutal truth is this: the tighter you try to hold on to life's strings, the more anxious you'll become. Because deep down, you already know, it's a losing game. And every time life refuses to follow your carefully crafted script, fear rushes in, gleefully reminding you of just how fragile that illusion really was. But here's what letting go really means. It doesn't mean giving up. It means recognizing what belongs to you and what doesn't. It's the wisdom to know the line between what you can shape and what you'll have to ride out. In the last section, we talked about the seductive illusion of control, how clinging to things beyond your reach only fuels anxiety. Now, let's get clear on what the Stoics did about it. They cut through that illusion like a razor, stripping away everything outside their control so they could focus, with absolute clarity, on what truly belonged to them. This is what the Stoics called their razor, a simple but powerful mental tool. Cut away what isn't within your domain, and pour your full, undivided effort into what is. You can't control how someone feels about you, but you can control how you show up in the conversation. You can't guarantee the job offer, but you can control the effort you bring to your preparation. You can't stop the rain, but you can decide whether or not to carry an umbrella. It's not about passivity, it's about power, redirected inward. Carl Jung captured it perfectly when he said, "I am not what happened to me. I am what I choose to become." And that right there is the heart of letting go. It isn't weakness, it's wisdom. It's standing in the middle of a storm and saying, "I may not control the winds, but I damn sure control how I hold my ground." And something remarkable happens when you start living this way. The fear that once tightened around your chest begins to loosen. Not because life gets easier, but because you stop wasting your precious energy on things you were never meant to carry in the first place. When you release that obsession with outcomes, you reclaim your focus, instead of draining your attention on all the things you wish you could fix. You sharpen it like a laser on what you can change: your attitude, your actions, your perspective, your effort. And here's the unexpected part: when you finally let go of control, you actually gain more influence. People trust calm. They're drawn to steady hands in a storm. Opportunities tend to find those who aren't frantic, who aren't desperately clinging to certainty. Your creativity returns too, once your mind stops cycling through endless worst-case scenarios. When you're no longer locked in survival mode. When you stop fighting every little wave. You become fluid, adaptable, dangerous, in the best way. Socrates once taught that wisdom begins by knowing what you do not know. Take it a step further, and you realize wisdom also lies in knowing what you do not control. And once you master this, fear starts to lose its grip on you. It can't touch you if you're no longer handing your peace over to circumstances that were never yours to command. So the next time fear creeps in and whispers, "But what if everything goes wrong?" you whisper back, "Then I'll meet it as I am, prepared, grounded, and free from the desperate need to control it." Let go, not because it's easy, but because it's the only way to stop drowning in the illusion of control and start walking with quiet confidence through the glorious, unpredictable chaos of life. And look, you're probably tired of hearing clichés like, "Be patient." Growth takes time. It sounds nice printed on a coffee mug. Sure, but when you're knee-deep in self-doubt, when fear has you by the throat, when you're out there doing the hard work, putting yourself on the line, that advice feels painfully hollow. Because let's be honest, when you're trying to overcome fear, when you're taking risks, making changes, doing the work to rebuild yourself, you don't want to wait. You want the fear to vanish now. You want the confidence to kick in now. You want the healing to be finished yesterday. But here's the uncomfortable truth nobody wants to say out loud: real change is slow. It's uneven, inconsistent, quiet, and most of the time, invisible to everyone else, even to you. And if you don't learn patience, you'll abandon yourself before the process has a chance to pay off. Because fear thrives in urgency. It tells you you're behind, that you should have fixed this already, that you're running out of time. But that voice in your head? It isn't wise, it isn't truthful, it's just noise, and patience is what helps you turn the volume down. The Stoics never expected perfection from themselves. They weren't chasing flawlessness. They understood, better than most, that being human means stumbling. It means messing up. It means feeling fear and doubt. Marcus Aurelius wrote it plainly: don't expect the impossible. Don't be angry when you slip. Start again. That was the whole point, not to achieve flawless mastery, but to show up again and again, with humility, even after setbacks. The tragedy is, we rarely extend ourselves that same grace. One bad day, one mistake, one fearful moment, and we act like it defines our entire journey. We tell ourselves, see, I'll never change. One wave of fear, and we assume we're weak. But you're not weak, you're growing. And growth is chaotic. It's messy. It rarely looks clean or predictable when you're standing in the middle of it. In the last section, we talked about growth, about how it's messy, uneven, and often disguised as chaos when you're in the thick of it. And if there's one truth that unnerves most of us, it's this: real growth demands that we meet ourselves fully. Flaws, fears, failures, and all. Carl Jung, one of the great thinkers of the modern mind, understood this on a profound level. He said, the most terrifying thing is to accept oneself completely. And isn't that what we're really afraid of at the end of the day? Not the outside world, not even failure itself, but the moment we come face to face with our own reflection, raw, unfiltered, and worry we might find something unworthy staring back at us. Because deep down, we know, if we're patient, if we slow down long enough to stop outrunning ourselves, we'll have to face the parts we've spent years trying to ignore. The insecurities, the regrets, the mistakes we pretend never happened. But here's the thing, that's exactly where transformation begins. It doesn't happen when you force change like a sprinter chasing a finish line. It happens when you nurture it. When you stop racing towards some fixed, polished image of who you think you should be, and start embracing who you are right now, with space to evolve naturally. Aristotle taught something beautiful about this. He believed virtue, the qualities we admire in ourselves and others, isn't something born in sudden, dramatic victories. It isn't earned through overnight wins or breakthrough moments on command. It's formed through habit, through steady, repetitive, often quiet acts of courage. Little by little, day by day, even when fear is still whispering in your ear, even when you still feel unsure. That's how patience transforms into power. Think of it like training a muscle. No one walks into a gym, picks up a heavy weight once, and struts out ripped. So why do we expect emotional strength to arrive instantly? Why do we imagine that courage will cement itself in our bones after a single tough conversation or one act of bravery? You don't build resilience by sidestepping fear. You build it by walking straight through it, again and again, with patience at your side. And here's an important reminder: let's not confuse patience with passivity. Patience isn't sitting back, doing nothing, and hoping life sorts itself out. It means doing the right things consistently, even when the results come slowly. It means trusting the process, even when it's frustrating, even when progress is invisible to everyone but you. It means giving yourself permission to be a work in progress, not as an excuse to stay stagnant, but as a promise to keep moving forward. So the next time you feel like giving up, when fear feels like it's winning, when your mind starts spinning that old story about how you'll never get there, pause. Breathe. Remind yourself, this isn't the end. It's a step. You're not failing. You're unfolding. Don't rush it. Don't shame yourself. Be steady. Be kind. Be patient. Because here's a truth that too many people quit before they get to witness: the greatest breakthroughs often arrive just after the moment you almost gave up. And if you stay with yourself long enough, if you keep patience tucked in your back pocket, you'll become someone even fear can't argue with. Because fear loses its power the moment you stop running from it and start listening to what it's trying to teach you. You're not behind. You're not broken. You're simply becoming. Thank you for being part of this journey with me here at Stoic Scrolls, this space where we don't avoid discomfort. We walk through it together. And if any part of this message landed with you, if it stirred something inside, know this: there's another video waiting for you right here on the screen, handpicked to take you one step further down this road you've started walking. And if you ever find yourself lost, unsure, or drowning in your own doubts again, come back. This scrolls will still be here, right where you left it. Stay steady. Stay aware. Until next time.